So I'm Steve Markham. I run a micro business. It's STM Quality Limited, and I think if you're going to name a company, why not use your initials? Hey. So I've been trading now for 14 years. Prior to that, you can tell from my accent, I'm not from the Northeast. I'm actually from the West Midlands, a place called West Bromwich. I moved to Newcastle probably 15 years ago, and shortly after I started my company. So I specialize in contract quality. I have a number of clients who I regularly perform work for, whether that's an interim manager or as an engineer. My focus really is on implementing management systems, and some of you may be familiar with the likes of 9001, ISO 14001 for the environment, health and safety 45001, energy management, which is becoming more and more popular now, 50001. And my perhaps specialist field is IATF 16949. That's specifically a quality management system for the automotive industry. So not only do I play around with implementing management systems and helping companies maintain those, I'm also interested in continuous improvement and making companies get better and better in what they do. So let's talk about corporate social responsibility. Let's call it CSR or SR just for brevity. And there's some reasons there as to why should a company be socially responsible. And there are several reasons. I've just jotted a few down there. Stakeholder scrutiny. A lot of companies may be under focus by their customer base, perhaps their suppliers, perhaps society as a whole, which does have some expectations, particularly from the larger organizations. And we have to be aware that CSR isn't just for huge organizations. The likes of some companies who make bottled drinks, for example, have now said we're not going to make our bottled drinks in plastic bottles anymore. We're going to use glass bottles or recyclable, reusable containers. So there's an element that they've taken under protecting the environment and as a means of broadcasting their achievements in social responsibility. There's an increasing awareness, I think, and large companies are always in battle to try and outdo each other. So here's what we've achieved, for example. Great, but look what we've achieved, for example. This does happen. Particularly, we get lots of adverts saying, aren't we great? We're using, particularly supermarkets, they're on about using less packaging now, particularly for fruit and vegetables, which I've always got problems with, that everything comes in a bag these days, and really, why should it? So there's some enhanced reputation. A lot of supermarkets, they're in battle with each other, and they want to gain customers, and customers have different purchasing reasons, and one of those might be, well, I'll only buy from a supermarket who wants to protect and sustain the environment. Well, that's great, and that's one of the reasons that supermarkets do this type of thing. Another good reason is it's a morale factor. The workers there and customers there have this feel-good factor that their organization is actually doing something that protects the environment or protects human rights, whatever that is. So there's some really good reasons there as to why companies should take CSR under the belt. Now, if you didn't know, there is actually a guidance document. ISO being ISO, love to put documents out regards anything. There's a British standard for most things that we buy. There's an ISO standard for most things that we manage. We talked about some of those ISO standards right at the very start, which I help companies manage and maintain. Now, those particular management standards are auditable. They are a standard that companies have pledged to agree to and are subject to formal audit, and subject to that audit are granted a certificate which they have to maintain. It's a lovely flag to fly to say, look how good we are at our quality, or how good we are at our health and safety record. But the ISO document, 26000, let's call it ISO SR. ISO SR really is a guidance document. So it's entirely voluntary. It's a set of documents that comes in one package. I think there's something like 280 pages if you care to scan through it all. But it's intended for everybody. All organizations, regardless of size, so a micro business like mine and a huge global organization, the requirements and principles apply to all organizations. So as soon as we're talking about principles, the standard is built around 7 core principles. And these we can see how they're accountable. Organisations are expected to be accountable, transparent in what they do, to have ethical behaviour, respect for their stakeholders, respect for the laws, international norms of behaviour. So what they're saying is, well, we're going to look at every country that we supply to and obey the laws of those countries. And a critical one there, respect for human rights. There's a lot of manufacturers who have now said, look, we're not going to buy materials from countries that use child labour or conflict materials. I mean, I'm in the automotive world, so we're going into battery-powered and electric-powered vehicles, and they rely on minerals which are dug out the ground. And some of these minerals are dug out by children. And a lot of companies have said, we are not going to do that. We're only going to source our materials from other places which respect human rights. So there's the 7 principles behind that document. Well, let's talk about the subjects. And these subjects are again, 7's a lovely number, and ISO have chosen to use 7 core subjects there. So we have some governance. Governance is all about how do we control these other 6. And we're talking really human rights that we've mentioned, labour practices that we've touched on, the environment we've mentioned, fair operating practices. So that's having some sort of flexibility. Things like fair trade and the red tractor, they all come under fair operating practices. Consumer issues and community involvement and development. And that's something that I've particularly taken on with my very small business to look and improve. So one element within the document simply quotes, an organisation's decision-making processes and structures should enable it to develop strategies, objectives and targets that reflect its commitment to social responsibility. So if you're going to do something, then set a target. Remember, you have to be transparent, you have to be accountable. But if there's a target there, well, let's say what that target is, and let's say how well we've strove to achieve it. I've put a note there to say that if you're interested in buying a copy of ISO, ISO SR, there's a link there to a reputable seller of this product. There are other routes available to buy that, but that's just one I've put on there. I will make this available to anybody who wants it, and I'll put the link in the chat as well. So my target, well, I chose to commit to 1 hour of my time committed to STEM activities, whatever those activities are. And I've actually written that commitment into my CSR policy. But the guidance document does say to organisations, you should have a policy. This is something that people can see. It's freely and publicly available. If you want to scrutinise it, you can. But there's my commitment, and it's written into the policy. And you will find that most organisations who take CSR responsible will have a policy and will make some objectives and targets publicly available there. And they'll publish results, usually in an annual report, sometimes in newsletters and bulletins to say how well they're doing. So let's quickly have a look at some of the things that I've been doing. Because they're STEM events, prior to lockdown, we're doing a lot of speed dating, going into schools and being interviewed by students who typically ask questions in 5 or 6 minutes that they have with each ambassador. And questions might be, what subjects should I need at school? And my answer as an engineer could be, well, it's maths, it's English because we need to communicate. It's certainly a science, design and technology, but it's not always about core subjects. It could be about teamwork, problem solving, communication. They're all skills that you will need. And speed dating is a great way of talking to lots and lots of students in a very, very short time, answering their questions. CV building is something that we do for perhaps the older student, 15, 16-year-old who's just about to leave school. We help them put a CV together. And that's quite difficult for students who have little or no work experience, yet could have a wealth of other experiences, such as being captains of sports teams, doing Duke of Edinburgh Awards. They've organised activities and events with their friends. These are all good points that we help them put together and develop a useful CV that then leads on to a mock interview. So we will interview students who are preparing or getting prepared for a real life interview. And we'll make this situation as as live and realistic as we can. Everybody makes mistakes, and the opportunity is there to make as many mistakes as you can. The whole point of the mock interview is to address those fears, the problems, the things to say, the things not to say, the things to put across, and the way we put across them, the way of the eye contact and body language. They're all there, and we help prepare the student. And certain classroom activities, we did a great one recently with Dragon's Den. We were asking kids to take an everyday object, like a bicycle wheel or a watering can, and come up with a novel way or a different way of using that particular product and pitch it to ambassadors. And that was quite interesting, quite fun, great fun. We had some wacky ideas, but it's great to get students' minds working. More recently online, we do a lot of networking with ambassadors. We share ideas. There's lots of learning to be had. I'm learning all the time. There's courses to be had. And STEM are very, very good, and the support from the hub has been excellent in making us better at what we do. We present to teachers, particularly about my area of STEM. I did one recently on solving problems in a real life situation. We try and educate teachers around my particular industry and the problems we face and how we get around them. We've recorded lots of videos. I've actually got a YouTube channel which I've put most of my my videos on, and they're intended for any age of school student, and perhaps older students as well. An event I did last week was responding to student letters. It was actually National Writing Day last Friday. We had lots of children write letters to ambassadors, open letters, and we took care to write to them back. And it was really good for a 10 or 11-year-old to actually get a letter back from a professional, or where we've got a child who's inspiring to be an engineer but wants to know more about it. So we had great fun doing that, and the feedback for the school and the students has been excellent. So we talked about targets and what I said I would do, which was 1 hour of STEM per week. What I've achieved so far, and certainly in my last year, I got an award from STEM which said I'd spent 50 hours of engagement. So that's my 1 hour a week justified, and I'm very, very happy and very proud with that. It's quite difficult at the moment that we're not going out and we're not talking to schools and colleges and younger people, but we are doing it in a virtual world, and I'm hoping that the amount of activity is still there. So my YouTube channel, there's a link to it there. There's a number of videos, and I'm adding to these most of the time. And my contact details are there. If anybody wants to know anything more about STEM, anything more about CSR, then contact me there. The phone's always on, my website's there, and you can email me at any time.